Microsoft Loop, it's a real-time collaboration workspace. And speaking about governance, IT admin controls, and lifecycle management of the data, I decided to dedicate a video because I have the feeling that compared to 1 year ago, this product is a bit more mature. And in these days, during the Ignite conference, Microsoft is giving us more capabilities to roll this service. So if you are looking to roll out and adopt this tool, stick around and I'll show you every important aspect to consider. Alright, let's get started. Here I am in Microsoft Loop to stay aligned with the content of this video. I extracted all important information from the Microsoft documentation about this topic, Microsoft Loop Governance, Lifecycle and Manageability Control. So in the first page, what we see is a very first differentiation between Loop workspaces and Loop pages and components. And where they are stored, we will see in a bit. But before to start with this important topic, it's important make a first distinction between the two. So how you can create a loop page and a components, and how you can have a loop workspaces. So a loop workspace can be created in a official Microsoft Loop tool and service. So that means that you are going to have a dedicated container for your workspace where you can have pages there. And this is the example, what we can see here. It's a collection of loop pages that are contained in the Alpine Sky House workspace. Different is a loop page or a component. They live in another container, which are basically OneDrive, SharePoint, and they can be created directly in a Word file, for example, or a OneNote file, or they can also create it in Outlook, in the whiteboard. So we know how to create components basically right now. And then we have Copilot pages. This is the new addition, but I will show you in a bit. I will come to this important aspect. Let's talk now about loop storage, where loop pages, workspaces, components are stored. So I have here a list that I want to show you in a full view so you can have a better feeling of where things are stored. So in the first row, we can see that across the Loop app, it's possible to create workspaces. In the same way with Copilot pages, this is the new addition released by Microsoft. Now, where workspaces are stored in a new container called SharePoint Embedded, and in this specific container you can have multiple containers, and for a dedicated container you are going to have your workspace. I'll show you later in the SharePoint admin portal how you can keep track of all containers created. Going to the next artifacts of Loop, we can see that across Teams channel meeting and Teams channel, it's possible to create loop components, for example, and where they are stored in SharePoint site. So every team has a dedicated SharePoint site, then it's easy to assume that every component and loop artifacts created in a channel meeting or in a Teams channel are stored in the folder of the dedicated SharePoint site. Going to the 5 row, we can see the Teams private chat, Teams private meeting, Outlook email, OneNote for Windows or for the web, and then the whiteboard. So we are here now in the OneDrive column. All loop artifacts created in these sources that we have on this column are then stored in OneDrive. So, and here there is the big concern. This was also my big concern about Loop OneDrive, because when the user leaves the company, so what happens with the all Loop components stored in his or her OneDrive space? So now we have more instruments and tools to keep track and avoid that content is lost after that the user change company or leaves the company for any reason. But this is where we are. We are in OneDrive, and all pages and loop files are stored there when the source is the one that we have seen in the right column. Another discernment to do about the ownership in Microsoft Loop is here summarized. So you can have user-owned Microsoft Loop workspace, or you can have a group-owned workspace. And finally, the third one, which is now currently and what is running, is the tenant-owned. So let's go to the first one. Copilot pages, it's the clear case where the user has a dedicated and personal workspace for him or her, just created in OneDrive space. Moreover, Microsoft is adding more capabilities for the ownership, allowing groups to take the ownership of a group. And this is probably the most demanded capability here in this service, because now the workspace can follow, or in the future, let's be more precise, can follow the life cycle now of the Loop workspace, follow the life of the Microsoft 365 group, which is great because we don't need to take care or thinking if a specific user leaves the company, what happens. And moreover, the workspace is also saved in SharePoint embedded, so we are more sure that we are not having troubles here when we have changes in the company. And finally, the third one, which is the right one that is running right now as scenario, which is the tenant owned. So these are the Loop workspaces created, and these workspaces are stored in the SharePoint embedded area or place. And then you can also assign to this Loop workspace, you can assign a group, for example, as a member of the Loop. This is more easy if you want to share a specific workspace with a team. This is another great feature that highlights the life cycle of Loop artifacts. Here on the left, we have the personal storage, the user-owned case. So here down below you have Loop components created in Teams, Outlook, Whiteboard, or OneNote. And these artifacts and these Loop pieces go directly in OneDrive for Business. That is managed by the user. Then finally we have on the right, staying always on the same silo, we have personal spaces, which is Copilot pages. Every Copilot page created through the Biz chat, for example, it is stored in the personal workspace of the user. Now, moving on the shared storage, we have the case of Microsoft 365 Group Owned. And here is the case when the user create Loop components in Team Channel or create Loop workspace from directly from Microsoft 365 Group, a team. So all these things are managed and the ownership is to the Microsoft 365 Group. Then the last one is the tenant owned, and in this case we have Loop created in SharePoint sites or in or Loop workspaces. That's the case where the ownership is of the tenant. From an admin and policies perspective, All you need to do to handle and enable Microsoft Loop in your organization is summarized in this other great picture. So here we have a separation of artifacts. Speaking about teams and loop components in Microsoft 365, we have a set of loop components coming from Outlook, OneNote, OneDrive. Then we have as B Copilot pages and the new Workspace, personal Workspace, which the user own. Then as a C, we have the Workspace, personal or shared, which is stored in the SharePoint embedded space. And then we have Teams. So how the admin can turn on all these capabilities in Microsoft Loop? So the easiest way is through the Cloud Policy portal. You can have a look to the policy that will allow you to turn on and enable Microsoft Loop in your organization. So for example, to turn on A, you have to enable this feature, which is called under the policy portal, create and view loop files in Microsoft apps that support Loop. So all other things can be done using the Cloud Policy portal, except for this one. So when you want to turn on Loop in chat and channels of Teams, or when you want to turn on meeting notes in Teams, so you have to use PowerShell. And these are all policies available related to Microsoft Loop. I switched now to the SharePoint Admin Center. As a SharePoint administrator, I have the ability to handle containers. So if you don't see this section in the Admin Center, it's probably because you don't have the SharePoint Embedded Admin role, which is a separation done by Microsoft between the SharePoint Admin and the SharePoint Embedded Administrator. So if you have this one, or if you have, of course, Global Admin, you have the ability to see everything here. But this is the right section where you can find our Loop workspaces. Clicking on Active Containers, I can see that now workspaces created through the classic Loop app are stored here with a dedicated storage. Now this is the quota that count with the full space that you have for your tenant, for your SharePoint data on your tenant. And here you can even apply a sensitivity label. Let's say that you have specific requirement for a specific container, for a specific Loop workspace. As a admin, you have the ability here to go on settings and then apply a sensitivity label. You can see the membership. Here you can switch membership. If you have just one owner, you can create policy to check this important thing. Let's cover the last topic in order to have strong governance and compliance in your organization. So here I created a bullet list with all important topic to touch if you are running and adopting and rolling out Microsoft Loop in your organization. The first one is audit. Going in the Purview portal, the new one, you are going to see audit here. And this is the best place where you can search all activity and you can monitor and keep track what the user is doing with specific files, with specific services. So it's a great place where an admin can have a look how many loop files are deleted or how many workspaces are created. So this is a first step that an admin can do in order to monitor a specific service. Then we have legal hold and e-discovery. With e-discovery, you can search for workspaces or for loop file, and then you can apply an legal hold policy on a specific container, for example, or on a specific workspace, because you want to keep this and you want to avoid that the content is lost once the user deletes it. And then we have multi-geo. The default geo tenant is the one where every workspaces and container are dropped on. Let's go with the next one, which is sensitivity labels and data loss prevention. So sensitivity label can avoid oversharing, can encrypt the content, and can even avoid external sharing, for example, just to mention some use cases. Data loss prevention is an incredible way to prevent things and educate users. So it acts like a scanner. So in this case, I have this notification here because using DLP, I marked all loop files that cannot be shared, just to make an example. But you can also apply a data loss prevention policy when the user tries to share workspaces or pages outside the organization. Then you can provide notification to the end user to educate him or her. So in this case, I have, please be aware that it's not allowed to share the content outside. And this is what I created in the Purview portal. So going here in data loss prevention policy, just to show you something here, I created a custom policy. So let me show you what I have done here for this specific DLP policy. So going on next, here you can set the admin units, the location. I'm targeting SharePoint sites and OneDrive accounts. And the rule for this one is sharing outside. So as a condition, I have targeted that this policy should be triggered when someone in the company shares something outside. Moreover, the file targeted here are loop and fluid files. This is the trigger. As an action, I notify to the user through the email and policy tips, and I restrict access to the external user if the content is shared, so I can educate the users. And then you can here simulate before publishing this policy if you want. But this is up and running now on my tenant, just to show you a use case. Going on back here on the summary, you have, as I mentioned, the ability to apply also sensitivity label. And here on top, there is this new button. If you click here, you are going to open a little panel with the full list to the sensitivity labels that you have created in your organization. Multiple owners. This is a new capability that is coming and will allow in the future to assign additional owners to Workspace, and this is absolutely important because right now there's no possibility to do that, and this is also crucial to have more control on the loop content. You can run also policy that check if there is only one owner and then inform the owner or promote automatically some member to become a owner. You can also apply Microsoft 365 groups as a member and owners in the future. And finally, you have the retention labels. This is also crucial for OneDrive content, loop content storage. So it means that if the user, for example, leave the company, the content is not gone because you can apply retentions label and you can keep the content for additional years, giving you the time to take an action in this specific user scenario. Are you going to use Microsoft Loop? And do you like how this product is evolving? Let me know in the comment down below. If this video it was helpful for you, please consider to subscribe and like. I hope to see you next time.